So for everybody here today, we would like to open it up to you for Q&A for any of our presenters. For any of the questions that you have, you can either use the chat, or if you're more bold, feel free to throw your hand up and open up your camera, or at least open up your mic and ask questions to any of the three presenters that we have today. One of the questions in the chat is, what are the best practices in finding the customer within the Air Force or DoD in preparation for an STTR? So I'll let any of our presenters, I don't know, Dr. Horak or Dr. Arnold, maybe from your perspective with the Navy, if you'd like to just chat about any experience that you've had when it comes to working the STTR process.
Well, my experience is actually outside the Air Force and DoD, but more in NASA and the U.S. Army is DoD. But a couple of things. One is read the solicitation carefully and really understand what's in it, so that you're actually responsive to what they're looking for. And usually, those come with names of people and contact information of people who have written them. And doing what you can to have a communication with them in person is always best, of course, so that you can really get a sense of what they're looking for, why they wrote the solicitation, the problem that they're really trying to solve, and so that you can really understand if your idea is well aligned and has resonance with what it is that they're looking for. And then the other thing is to try to find good, good partners. Your proposal is always better, in my opinion, if you have a strong set of collaborators, as opposed to I have this idea myself. Of course, then you have to share the resources and divide the work. But really being responsive to the solicitation, building a relationship with the folks and the organization that's writing the solicitation to really know what problem they're trying to solve, and then putting the best team together to respond to that. That would be my answer to the question.
Dr. Arnold?
Sure, I'll jump in. So I'll say we don't have a SBIR STTR program of our own. My experience is somewhat peripheral, but I agree with the advice to contact the TPOC. Those contacts are provided in there. Take advantage of the question and answer period too, and try to establish good partnerships. Another thing I've seen with having reviewed from time to time, selected as to review, is the commercialization strategy. I think sometimes it can be an afterthought. And there is a lot of consideration, in my experience, of those commercialization strategies. So I would say to develop those and present something realistic that shows a thought and promise, I would say, just from my limited experience, and look for other partners beyond just the TPOC, other potential customers within the sponsoring agency. And I know that can be kind of difficult with the federal government. A lot of times there's limited information online, but it's out there with persistent search. Over.
Excellent. Ezra, so I'll follow up with you on that question, only of course as it pertains more to NASA. It looks like, I think you're frozen. Gotta love technology. Okay, maybe I'll come back to that here. It might help, I don't know, Emma, what do you think if maybe he goes out and comes back in, which I think is what he just did.
Good. Yeah, I think he did, but we can definitely follow up in any questions we don't get answered. I know Ezra just dropped his email in the chat, so we can definitely get some answers from him there.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. Ezra, you're back.
Is this better? Or?
Yeah, much better, much better. So
okay, I figured out the issue.
let me follow up then with that previous question real quick, which is from the STTR perspective, what's the best way maybe to find a customer within NASA if you want to partner with NASA?
That's
Any
a good
thoughts?
question. Good way to partner within NASA. That's a really good question. I can give you the contact. Well, first, you can reach out to me and I'll provide you the contact from our SBIR STTR office here at Glenn. But I guess more informally, I don't know, it's kind of been, if you know someone or just starting with someone and they reach out to individuals that they know, but yeah, I agree. There probably should be a better way of doing that, than going about it that way. So for now, if anybody is interested in that, just reach out to me and I'll make sure that you are put in contact with our SBIR STTR office here at Glenn, who should be able to point you in the right direction to the people that are working that area, that they know are working on projects that are providing the funds for those topics.
Yeah, fantastic. No, that's actually a great way to make those connections, is to work through those offices, the Small Business Association offices that are within the federal partners. I'm curious as to if you're familiar with university leadership initiatives and whether or not you see any potential for the area that you briefed today, anyways, as to be able to make that connection.
I think it was just announced a few weeks or maybe a month ago that there was a ULI awarded in the area of hybrid electric, but I think it's more on the hydrogen side though. So sustainable, what they're calling zero emission aviation, and there is a thermal component in there. It's actually a pretty big component in that particular award. So certainly that is an area that there is. It's a fruitful area to propose to ULI, I would say.
Excellent. Okay. Dr. Horak, I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about how, if there's individuals or organizations that are interested in trying to partner with Ohio State, NanoRacks, Zen, whoever happens to be on the StarLab initiative, how might they potentially go about doing that, or is there opportunities for them to do that?
So the answer is yes. And the first thing you might do is give me a call or send me an email. As I said, we're early in the program. So, there's probably at least two threads of research, maybe three, to go forward. One is those kinds of things and those domain areas that you see ongoing in space today, for example, on the ISS, those will continue. Those will be even facilities that you see on the ISS that could be leveraged: centrifuge, bioreactor, microscopes, airlocks, and those kinds of things that would support research. The second thing is, opportunities where you think space might have an advantage for the question that you're asking, because you might want to, what happens if I turn off the gravity? What happens if I change the radiation environment? What if I need to suppress convection? What if surface tension is the only way I can deliver a fluid from point A to point B? All the kinds of things that you might think about in your day-to-day research life or in the development of a new product, where the removal of gravity or the change in the radiation environment or the exposure to hard vacuum, thermal cycling, atomic oxygen, all that might be useful to make that go. And then third, this is an iPhone. When this was built, nobody realized that there was a requirement for this. It was a new product. It was a new idea. And I think those are the kinds of things that are going to transform the world. So as you walk through your sort of entrepreneurial space, or you're journaling in your journal in the morning about what you want to do with your company, or where you have this interesting idea, even if there is no sort of requirement for it today, but there might be something for it tomorrow. This is the third kind of thread of research that I think you're going to see take off here as we sort of open the aperture on people's access and ability to do this kind of work in space. And as I sort of sometimes pejoratively say, we take away the mystery of the priesthood of NSF government those PIs that are, sacrosanct. Basically, if you have a good idea and some resources, and we can help you do that, and spaceflight will help you, then we're going to find a way to fly it, whether you're a professor at MIT or a student at Muskingum Community College or middle school. We want to open up and sort of democratize the access to do research on space, in space. And that research does not have to be with super capital R, fancy font. It can be just research as you define it.
Excellent, thank you. Dr. Arnold, I was watching your presentation. It reminded me of the almost 30 years of flying fighters in the Air Force, and how much my neck and back hurts right now from doing that. So I'm kind of curious, when we talk human factors in the future of some of the research that's going on, if there's any one particular, maybe breakthrough or area that you think that is really going to be productive here in the next, say, 5 years, for people if they're interested in wanting to do that kind of research?
I can think of a few. I'll mention one in particular, and I touched on it briefly in the presentation, but pilot spatial disorientation has been a big problem in aviation for decades. It has been the leading aeromedical and human factors related cause of Class A flight mishaps in the DoD, in commercial and general aviation. It's a real killer. We have, I think, an opportunity at Wright Pat. I showed the slide on the disorientation research device, the Kraken. This is a new and unique capability. We are able to reproduce known illusions, whether they're vestibular related, visual illusions, multisensory illusions that have been fairly well characterized over the years, but we've never had an opportunity to really reproduce them reliably in order to evaluate mitigations for that, whether it's novel instrument displays, whether it's multisensory cueing, training, what have you. So I think as far as the NAMRU Dayton is concerned, that would probably be the chief one. It's a new capability to get after an old problem in novel ways. So that's the one I'd highlight. It is a unique capability for the state of Ohio, and perhaps an opportunity for research within the state for developing STEM initiatives focused on aerospace type issues, aeromedical, aerospace physiology in particular. Over.
Excellent, thank you. One of the questions that's in the chat, and actually we'll hold off on probably answering it because it really is more towards our individual speakers, is asking about being able to provide talks at around the state of Ohio. Specifically, they mentioned Cleveland State, but really for any of the universities, if they're interested in, having any of the presenters or anybody from the Ohio Federal Research Network come and talk, excuse me, at your organization or your university or whatever it happens to be, we're more than happy to coordinate those things for that. So just let us know and we can start working on that. I'll let Dr. Horak go because he has his hand up, but I'm going to put on deck Marty and Matt, because I have a feeling both of them have questions that maybe they would like to bring up. So Dr. Horak, to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to reflect on a comment that Dr. Arnold made that I think is really important. For example, the centrifuge that he described, that's an amazing facility. And there's, none like it in the world. And you have the similar things at NASA Glenn Research Center in terms of aircraft icing and aircraft electrification and large vacuum chambers and test facilities. And when we're able to put this terrestrial analog facility in for StarLab, perhaps at the Ohio State University Airport as one location, the Springfield Beyond Line of Sight testing capability. Ohio has some of these essential facilities around which that it's also, I think, super important to think about how to partner and leverage. And so in addition to the subject matter itself and the people and the organizations, Dr. Arnold's comments about the facility made me want to just reemphasize that we can think about that dimension of Ohio's uniqueness as well in terms of the hardware and infrastructure and lab facilities that we have as a way to further the catalyzation of new ideas.
Excellent. Marty, you're up.
Sure. Dr. Arnold, it might be nice if you gave folks a little insight into the project that you actually did with Ohio State and the interesting evolution. This was a project first designed for Honda. How do you best assemble cars? Could you give it, and that's, I think, what John was just alluding to. There's linkages between one project to the next project if you just take the time to give it a hard look.
Sure. So in round 2 of OFRN, there was a proposal submitted, and we had just become familiar with the Ohio State Spine Research Institute, and they had a proposal in for based on some preliminary discussions evaluating mechanisms of motion sickness and spine disorder in provocative motion and acceleration environments. They teamed with University of Cincinnati, where they had expertise on gait analysis, posture and gait, and then with Wright State for some omics research that supported that. But we opened up the lab to that research team. And again, as I mentioned, and you may be aware, so the federal labs are not eligible to be performers on the OFRN projects, but we are, I guess, customers, as it were, or focus for alignment. And so we decided to open the lab up and allow the team to do their work in the lab. We established a CRADA, a Cooperative Research and Development Agreement. We had a nominal fee. We had we have to pay the salaries of our equipment up, a cost share through the CRADA to get some of their money to us to pay for our technicians to operate the equipment. But then OSU and their partners did the research project in our unique facilities that were not available otherwise. We have since then, so this is probably, that wrapped up probably 4 years ago. We continue to work with that group. We have had, I would guess, 4, 5, 6 funded collaborative research projects mostly through various DoD funding agencies. We took one of the graduating PhD students from OSU and seeded our own lab there and have developed that capability organically. And that's only fueled the further collaboration. I think they've gotten maybe 2 SBIR awards that are indirectly related to that partnership. So it continues to bear fruit even to this day, even though it goes back to round 2 of OFRN. Over.
No, I think that's great. And the theme I'm trying to give to the folks that are dialed in today, all 3 speakers, the partners that OFRN's been working with want to cooperate and collaborate. And if they can't directly help you, they're really good at pointing you in the right direction. So I think that's another key advantage. You always don't find what you want where you want it. But the key thing for everyone to remember out of the gate is you got to address a requirement if you're responding to an OFRN paper. Don't send me your dream of the week kind of thing, but send us a concrete proposal or interface with Matt, who's got a broader aperture and can point you to other procurement opportunities that we'll talk about. Matt, your turn.
Yeah, and Dr. Arnold, and this probably also goes to Dr. McNichols, on if you could, actually I'll go to first Dr. McNichols. On Dr. Arnold noted the CRADAs and agreements like that. Could you kind of illuminate, I know NASA doesn't do CRADAs, but what, and then I'll turn it over to you, what does NASA do that's similar to CRADAs? So over to you.
So we do have, Space Act agreements as well. So what that is reimbursable and non-reimbursable space acts, and we do those agreements with companies as well. So non-reimbursable would be whatever, clearly define which party is responsible for what, and NASA each party kind of absorbs that cost on their own. There's no exchanging of funds whatsoever. And then with the reimbursable Space Act agreement, the difference is that there is an exchange of funds. And those tend to be a little more complicated. They're not, I mean, they're not impossible, obviously, but it is more of a process to go that route than a non-reimbursable one where each party just agrees to provide what they agree to provide, and they figure out their own cost on their own.
And I guess I'll go to both of you. The genesis of those agreements, are those through BAAs or something else, or solicitations? I'll go with Dr. McNichols first.
So on our side, sometimes they're a little informal. They start, from conversations that you had or people that you're aware of that do work in this area. Other times they are from like NRAs or NASA research announcements. They can come, from those programs as well, or from those solicitations.
Thank you. Dr. Arnold, how about you?
So ours are, I would say, in a sense, entirely informal, since we don't have solicitations or BAAs. We have, as I was describing earlier, we partner. We tend to propose if we have if we have found a collaborator with a common interest. We will propose to various solicitations from DoD or non-DoD funding sponsors, and then develop whatever agreements are required. I mean, we have to have some agreement for any outside collaboration. It varies depending on the type of collaboration, the type of partner, funding, exchanging funding in one direction or the other. But CRADA, is Cooperative Research and Development Agreement, is probably the most common. Those are relatively easy and quick to get in place, and those can be funded or unfunded. If they're funded, they allow funding to flow from the non-government to the government partner. If it needs to flow in the opposite direction, we would do that through a contract. Over.
Thank you. And it's great to hear about opportunities that you can find ways into where it's not a specific solicitation or competitive solicitation. And this is why it's important to engage with the researchers directly and consistently, because you never know what's going to pop up in terms of agreements like those. So thank you. Marty, back over to you.
Yeah. John, I think for most people, it's the first they've heard of StarLab, which is, we got to get the press out there. So I'll challenge Ezra. Are you aware of StarLab, Ezra?
No, not intimately. No, I wasn't.
Most I'm an ex-NASA guy. I used to kid people that the people that knew the least about what was going on were the NASA people. You had to go outside.
That's very true. And a lot of the projects. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I was thinking back to when we started OFRN, and maybe I should let people know, because Mark's intimately engaged with me in this and a couple other folks. We're now looking, what is the evolution of OFRN? Where do we go next? What, domains should the model take a look at? And you can probably hear space is popping itself back up. I saw a number the other day that 40% of all R&D in DoD now is space-based. So you can clearly see a shift in that. John, would it help to do road shows for you and your program if we could set something up at Glenn, something up at AFRL, a couple of the big business associations, so that people really know that we are doing this, because it's got 3 key Ohio anchors. That's a big deal.
So yeah, the answer is affirmative. I think Von Braun said the way to get to the moon is late to bed, early to rise, work like heck, and advertise. He might not have said that. So I think that's part of what we're going to have to do here. And, it's always a challenge to get the word out. And by the time you're sort of tired of saying it, that's when your audience and your stakeholders are just now catching on to the fact that you're saying something. So sign me up. I got a Volkswagen Touareg. It'll go 630 miles on a tank of gas. I can get from one side of the state to the other. Put me in, coach. But don't put me in coach.
We'll do it.
Economy comfort is better.
Yeah.
So I'll piggyback on what Marty just said, which is very important, really, for everybody listening in. Which is, what is the future for potentially the next round for OFRN and for what Parallax Advanced Research is doing here in the state of Ohio. So although this StarLab announcement is incredibly exciting to me, and I really look forward to all the great things that are going to go along with that, and hopefully being able to bring the terrestrial lab to the state of Ohio would be really outstanding. One of the individuals that had posted in the chat mentioned the microelectronics program. So unless you've been living sort of under a rock, obviously, for the last couple of months, you probably know that Intel has announced, that they're going to build the world-class fab facility here just to the east of Columbus. And actually, some of the construction, the roads out there have already started because they've closed them down so they can start working on what is going to be a pretty amazing, I think, facility. So that, could potentially be another area of interest for a lot of individuals, I think, here over these next 5 to 10 years too. So for those that are listening in, if you think you have an area that you think that Ohio Federal Research Network should be focusing on, feel free, throw out some suggestions, throw out some inputs to those of us that are working on the team with Parallax Advanced Research for that. So I don't see any other questions specifically right now. Matt, I'll actually give you an opportunity to maybe answer the one question about, is there any way that Ofrn can help a team or an individual go from 6.1 to 6.2 or 3 on that, since I mentioned earlier that we don't do basic research, that we're focused on advanced. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so we do focus on the 6.2, 6.3 funding areas, which tie to TRL or Technology Readiness Level 3 or above for those who aren't in the DoD speak. So 6.1, 6.2, 6.3 are budget activities of the DoD. 6.1 is basic research, 6.2 is advanced research or applied research, and 6.3 is advanced technology demonstration. So the overall intent of OFRN is to get capabilities out to the 6.3 and prototyping stage. And that really hopefully gets folks to TRL 6 or above. So we certainly are willing to help get out of that. But the projects have to be focused on achieving a TRL 3 or above, preferably TRL 6 or above, so that they can get it to commercialization state.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mark, one suggestion I might make on that line. In my prior life, I was the vice president over at Battelle, and they wanted to go into space. Now, people would think, oh, they've got everything, they're going to be the prime. We got in by taking our little subsystems and things and finding people to partner with that raised us up the TRL level chain to where at the end of the day, we finally did have our own set of things that you could bid and propose. So I think partnering is a great universal theme. There's a lot of good contacts through the OFRN page, but there's other big associations around the state. If you're in Cleveland, you got the Ohio Aerospace Institute, right? If you're in Dayton, got Dayton Fly. But get engaged with those kind of things. Go hear the presentations when you see something of interest, because you really got to network big time, to get out there. Just so folks know, another thing we're looking at more near term for OFRN is we've funded 35 projects. You can see a lot are directly linked to advanced air mobility. Now we're considering how do we integrate some of those projects that we did on platforms, and the company gets a certificate of flight, technical verification that what you have will work in a flight environment. Things like that are also part of what we're looking at. So have one NASA compatible platform, have one DoD compatible platform, and go fly. So we really are open to ideas. So please take Mark up on this request.
Okay. any other questions? I don't see any, so don't be shy. Feel free. I promise Dr. Horak won't bite. I've been around him close, and he hasn't bitten me yet.
It's been like 3 weeks since I've bitten somebody, so you're probably all good.
So maybe we'll do this, since I don't see any other questions. Is I'll let each of our presenters maybe just take 2 minutes or 3 minutes here. If there was something maybe you didn't quite get to in the short time that we gave you in the original presentation that you'd like to follow up with, I'll give you a couple minutes here now to do that. And I'll just go in the same order we had before. So Dr. Arnold, I'll start with you and let you jump in.
I think I got through everything I'd hoped to get through, and don't have anything prepared for this, but I would just reiterate that we partner. We can be difficult because we don't have discretionary core funding for awards, but we prioritize partnering very highly, and we are persistent. And if we have willing partners and patient partners who are willing to stick it out until we can find funding for our mutual research interests, we're very keen to do that. And we're very creative in finding ways to do that. So I think you have my contact information from the slides that I saw were going to be sent out. And please reach out if anything you saw in my presentation or in our discussion interests you. Over.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ezra, I'll go to you. And if you'd like, you can take, now that I think we've got your the connection much better than it was before, if you want to try to finish maybe answering that question that you started early on, feel free to do that.
Yeah, certainly. I figured it out. I was still on the NASA VPN, and that was, that was a bad idea. Yeah. That did it. So the question earlier, I think, was on, CFD methods, or I guess advanced CFD methods, and maybe looking at additive manufacturing. So we do develop, in-house codes here at Glenn, and there is a process, to get a hold of those codes as well. Like, most of them are, developed completely within NASA, so everyone should have access to those codes if you'd like. Another one that I didn't present here that we're working on, I didn't present it because it was kind of right now very low TRL, kind of in-house and not really a partnership. Although we would be interested in partnering on this, though, are these those physics-informed neural networks where you solve your governing equations, but you don't do it with your traditional numerical approach. You don't discretize your domain or your equations, and it's completely with a neural network. We've got some preliminary success with that. For simple systems or simple equations, it's not very advantageous, but as you get into very highly nonlinear, more complicated things, they really start to show a lot of promise there. But yeah, hopefully I answered the question. If not, please don't hesitate. And that's something I also want to reiterate is if you have any questions or want more information, my contact, my email's on the first chart of my my slides I put together. Please don't hesitate. I'll make sure that you get in contact with the right person. So please, please just don't hesitate.
Ezra, by chance, have you interfaced with America Makes in Youngstown?
That sounds familiar.
They're the DoD lead, so they're one of the first manufacturing institutes, funded about 150 million. But they do research projects. You can propose and you can bid, and their whole focus is additive manufacturing. So you could get a researcher at Case or Kent State or anywhere you want and go in with a proposal to work on your design challenge, because it would port to a lot of different activities.
That's good to know. Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Okay, if you need connections, we can connect you too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And another interesting data point on that is the PM and CTO for America Makes is Air Force Research Labs Manufacturing Technology Program out of Wright State.
Yeah.
So we can always connect you with those folks as well.
Justine, do you have a question?
Yes, Ezra, our offices, our customer experience center is right next to America Makes. So my contact information is from this call. If you're interested, we have access to every 3D printer type in the world. We have one of the only, in our 5-building campus, including YSU, we have the only one of 2 ceramics printers. So I'd be happy to facilitate a tour of not only America Makes, but any of our 5 buildings, which you could see all of the different additive manufacturing machines.
Oh, that's very interesting. Okay, thank you, Justine.
Thanks, Justine. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Dr. Horak.
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to like close this with something inspirational. I don't know, like, you know, God save the Queen or something. But one thing that really excites me about OFRN is I think it recognizes several fundamental truths. One is that as we try to make Ohio a better place, social and economic and educational and quality of life outcomes for people, I think OFRN is an expression of recognition that the first link in that value chain of prosperity is research and technology research to create those outcomes. And then the second thing is that if we're ever going to achieve those outcomes, we have to do it through partnership. And this is as clear as day for me that we have to compete as Ohio, because if it's Dayton versus Cleveland versus Columbus versus Cincinnati versus Athens, we're just not going to work, because we're going to get run over by our competitors who are competing at scale. And we have to find ways to collaborate so that we can compete at scale across many different domains. So that's why I'm excited about working with OFRN, because I think it expresses those 2 fundamental truths in activity. And when we activate that, we get the kind of results that General Bartman showed in the beginning. So looking forward to more.
Awesome, fantastic. Thank you. So this was really a great session to be able to answer some Q&A, as well as to be able to talk in general, I think, about the key points that I have always had when it comes to Ohio Federal Research Network and what we do is it's either partnership, 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 or collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. If you use one of those words and you are diligent about it, you will be successful in the end. There's no question about that. So to Dr. Arnold and Ezra and Dr. Horak, thank you very much for your time. We truly appreciate it. I know, Dr. Horak, I think you have to run to another meeting here in about 30 seconds. So thank you very much. Really do appreciate everything that you've done today.